I'm excited about this in particular because last year this was our most engaging and fulfilling session, I think. So there's plenty of USP training material that we can go through, but I think that this is definitely more rewarding for most people. So this is our operating roundtable. I've been looking forward to it. We do have only one microphone up there, and so I'm going to leave the other one there. Like I said before, feel free to ask questions at any time. Don't wait for me to go through all these, pre-prepped questions. That's not how we roll around here. I want to keep it open. So, but I would first like through and introduce yourselves, talk a little bit about how you are involved with USP at your organizations, beyond that, which we already know. And then we'll move along. We're going to start with Chen on the end.
Hi, my name is Chen Li, and I'm the expert member technical staff with AT&T, and under the group, the standards in industry alliances. So my job basically is, represent a company to participate in various, standards organizations. It's mostly my focus is on broadband and networking. So, BBF being, important standards organization in the broadband ecosystem. So, and my involvement with, BBF is the important part of my job. And I'm happen to be a board member on the BBF also. And I, work with especially, BAS, working group. So, and previously I also, work within AT&T on the broadband operations and testing for many, many years. So, so there's some perspective from the operation point of view. Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Hi, Wojtek Makowski. I work for Orange. I'm VP CPE ecosystem. My role is to drive Orange efforts in transforming the way the CPE industry works to make it more efficient, more agile, and to have something that I call a software platform. Something that will drive innovation, and innovation coming from everybody, not just from some internal teams or some specialists, but really an ecosystem of applications. So all those things that were discussed today, of course, that's something of importance for me. I joined Orange in 2020. Before, during 30 years, I was involved in software development, mainly for the telecommunication industry. I founded or joined several startup companies, etc. So that's my background, and I have been involved also for a few years ago in BBF a little bit more, in the Home Gateway Initiative, and now I represent Orange at the board of directors of the Purple Foundation.
Perfect, thank you. My name is Arne Schulz. I'm working for Vodafone Group, and I'm responsible for our home and security products. So traditionally, that means my team is more in this area of apps and clouds and value-added services and building platforms. And we have other colleagues from Vodafone that are well experienced in the network standard definition. This USP Summit gives us an opportunity to add a different flavor into Broadband Forum, which is really coming from this platform side, as you mentioned, and also looking more on how can we get basically, let's say, modern apps, cloud-based infrastructure, value-added services together with our traditional CPE business. So what my team is doing, and you saw Marcel earlier, having the technical insights, we are driving this transformation. So we are working with our device colleagues. We are taking more and more ownership of the software ecosystem in CPEs. And we are trying to move away from a model where we simply fill out an RFQ specification and say we want to buy a box with this size and this features, to owning the software stack. and basically also influencing what we can do on this terminals platforms. Thank you.
Yes, and you know me already. I'm Volker Effelsberg from Deutsche Telekom. And as a product owner for remote management, I'm eager to integrate USB into our capabilities.
So my very first question is to give a little bit about, and apologies for those who've already heard this story from Volker, and from Marcel. The key use cases that you're using USP for, with particular attention to those things that whether or not those things are things that are entirely separate from what Tier 69 could do, whether they are things that you are replacing the capability of what Tier 69 could do in the past, or things that are entirely new, right? Anyone can jump on that right away, unless you want to go in order. Yeah.
It was quite funny to see the presentation from Deutsche Telekom and Vodafone, because it was a way to discover that the way we at Orange we see the introduction of USB is actually quite similar to what those guys are doing.
Good, we're all not crazy, is it?
Right, because basically, the idea that we can replace an ACS, TR69, etc., by something new, you just forget it. Okay. The idea is that, okay, there are new use cases, and this is a way to introduce it, okay? Because USB means some number of things. It has a quite huge impact on what you already have, etc. So there is no clear business case for the replacement, okay? It's just that simple.
Mm-hmm.
But the new use cases, this is definitely something of interest. So there were several that were mentioned. I have one more, or maybe more, or maybe not, but something we believe is of importance. This is about, how the data scientists work. The problem with data scientists is that they never have the data they need, okay? So
like hungry.
This is basically a kind of iterative process, okay? They try with some new data, then do something with that, then they discover this is not that. They make another try to collect some new data, and it goes like that. So the idea is, okay, and they don't need to have access to all the devices in the CP. They may need, a few hundreds and a few thousands, but that's all. So you can imagine many data scientist teams working in parallel, each having their own USB controller,
Mm-hmm.
and collecting and interacting with the CPE some specific data. So with Purple, it goes even further, because you can even upgrade some pieces of software to generate some data that is not standardized, etc. But this USB controller for collecting the data and changing what you collect very rapidly is something that we believe of interest.
Cool. Yeah.
Maybe if I can add to that, so I think agree. We did not have the idea to rip out everything we did before and replace it by something. That's not possible, I think. Data is an interesting use case. We also had to look at future revenue generation, because I think in large corporates, if you want to get anything done, you need to have a revenue case midterm at least. And this is, I think, where for us, this software module management is interesting. If we believe we can turn the CPE into the service platform or service hub, we need to have a way to manage this software. And I think the other part to your question, Jason, that's why we decided to start with this island approach. So we did not touch or influence what we have deployed around Europe. We picked a new device. It's easier to start with a new device.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We picked a new central deployed platform. And that allowed us, I think, to go very quickly into the first use cases.
Yeah.
So it's a bit like taking the shortcut path in.
Yeah.
Yes, and for us, it's not so much about replacement of Tier 069, but using synergies from Tier 69, so that we add USB and we use the same device database, for example, which we have already via tier 069 deployment to onboard USB devices. So I believe strongly into the synergy of this remote management system. So the USB controller belongs somehow to the ACS. So for me, this is one system, one integrated system.
Right. Yeah. Chen?
So we actually committed significant resources in the past, right, on TR69 and to do, the device onboarding and then, updating image and then device remote configuration, right? And those kind of things, of course, with USB, we expect to continue to do that. And but we are also, looking is in the future and approve deployment way, right? So yes, they talk about, I think when the roundtable talk about service provider requirements and why the USB is better, the advantage of USB over TR69, those are all relevant to us, right? So at the end of the day, if any solution that we are actually improve the operational efficiency and improve our customer experience, it's valuable to us.
Mm-hmm.
And so if any solution that will help our customer care team have a better visibility in the customer's network, and we know what's the problem in happening, and even better now not calling at all, right? You can help help customer actually preemptively warning our issues and then can resolve it before call, even better. But as mentioned earlier, technician dispatch is very expensive. We want to avoid anything that can help doing it, right? And the USB, so the containerized enable capability that that will basically speed up the new service delivery. It's wonderful, but that's the future. So I don't think we are there yet, because it depends on other participants in the ecosystem to work in a concept.
Right. Can we riff right off of that and talk about the legacy device situation? Just what everybody's sort of opinions about that are, right? How long, not necessarily how long you have to keep supporting tier 69, but if there really are those benefits that you want to derive from USP, and there is this sort of legacy deployment, like let's have that conversation. I'm not going to ask the question too deeply. Chen, you can start if you were already going down that road, if you want to. Yeah.
Yeah. So so the legacy devices, are you talking about legacy devices?
Yeah. Yeah. It's come up several times during lunch conversations and everything. So
okay. So I mean we in our network, there's different kinds of devices now. Some devices they still support DSL, and they got because we face it, right? We're not having fiber everywhere, and we're not going to cut the service. So, but if the DSL device, are we going to is it able to support USB? That's a question mark, right? And
right.
So effectively, we are going to support TR69 for a long time, in the future.
Yeah.
So, but basically, we are trying to deploy USB in a major way, and we don't want to basically switch from TR69 to USB with the tens of millions of devices. Right. That's not an easy task, right? So
right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but we are trying to look at if we are actually trying to migrate to paper-based platform.
Right.
That will be USB enabled by default. So now we'll run up the USB deployment.
Cool. Wojtek?
So There is no doubt that we'll not upgrade old CPs with USP. That's you can take for granted, because there's no business reason to do that. Okay, and as you know, upgrading anything is always a kind of painful experience. So I even don't know when we will switch with new devices for their pure remote management aspects from the current ACS to something USP based, because it works.
Yeah.
Okay, it works. And this is not only that it works. There is so many dependencies on systems that, interact with ACS. There are so many processes that are based on the way it works. There are so many people that are skilled in using the system, etc., that just replacing it without any new value for this specific case, I don't see a business case for that. One day when we'll have, those additional use cases and the USP platform that will be big enough, maybe at that day it will make sense to optimize and to get rid of the old ACS. But other than that, there is no reason. It just works. It's basically, it was too successful.
I know. Did you hear that, Grandpa Tier 69?
I would want to agree and disagree, so without being melodramatic on
No, please. That's how roundtable should go.
I think at the end, I would agree. We will never upgrade our whole legacy base to USP, and our legacy base, as Marcel said, is quite complex and large and old as well. I do believe there is a business value, and business value can be simple things like just having a better customer experience via remote app management, or taking specific services that still run on legacy devices. So there is a business value that we are seeing, at least. The challenge we have, and we have some OEMs in the room, some of them we work with as well, it's not that easy. So we picked carefully a couple of devices where we say, let's do the USP upgrade. And it's not super old ones. It's decent ones that are still in sale or just shortly exited from active sales. And we run into huge complexity. That can be SDK upgrades, chipset complications, available memory, other things. So even on devices where we say this is feasible, there's a huge price tag attached to it. And if we are driving that then with the limited use cases, so we don't see zero, but limited use cases at the moment, it's not worth the investment yet. And I think that's where we would encourage some different view, and maybe also say, okay, I think we need some partnership to say, don't wait for us to say we want USP, but upgrade platforms earlier to be capable, for example. Yeah. So I think that's our take on it. We would love to do it, not for everything, but for some decent devices. But the investment and complication is huge. Really.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
No, because actually there is no difference. Maybe I was not clear. I said that for the classical remote management, there's no reason to replace it.
Right.
But I said for all new use cases and the ones that you mentioned as, application management, etc., that are for me new use cases. For those, they definitely need USP. So there is no disagreement between us.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Just for purpose, yes, we can disagree. Because you also mentioned the new devices you are still waiting, and obviously we love to start on new devices already.
I mean, so if we just wait for new devices to come in our market with USB capability fully fledged, then we can, when we think about numbers and scaling, then we wait really, really long for USB to take up. So so we have over 11 million, over 10 million devices in management, and we see the churn in the router is not exchanged by the customer within, don't know, 5 years, 6 years, 10 years.
I was a 10-year guy.
Yeah, okay. So what does it mean? So we have a large customer base, but when we really if we only look for new devices to populate in the markets, then we really have to wait very long. So we have to seriously consider also legacy devices. Okay, the feasibility, so we have to look at, but it's so important not only just to wait for new devices with USB capability to come on, otherwise it takes ages to scale to some numbers.
I wanted to follow up on something that Arne said to continue that line of reasoning, because obviously, even from QA Cafe's perspective, we've seen, the trend towards operators taking control of the integration process, right? But it sounds like there is still a desire to try to get it out there in an interoperable way so that that process is a little bit easier. Is that something, what is everybody's thoughts on that process, sort of getting USB out more to the vendor community, the OEM community, convincing them that it is something they should be doing before waiting to hear from you guys to tell them that it is something that they should be doing, and if that means, doing more proof of interoperability, doing more, just general proselytization, that kind of thing. That's my question.
Before you jump down that road, Jason, I agree with your comments. Moving to USB is painful. We have all these embedded devices. We have all these embedded processes. It works. How do you change stuff that doesn't work? I think the question that I would ask is, there's definitely efficiencies that we can see with USB. So for example, in our embedded devices, we've got a connector up to our ACS. We've got a connector to our mobile device. We have connector to performance systems. Sometimes these are different types of connectors. Moving to a single connector on a device would provide some efficiency. But the question I really have coming back to the operators is, what would it take? What could help you with that transition? Yeah. Would it be, essentially the vendor community coming up and saying, hey, we're going to embed USB from the device coming out? I know Purple is driving forward with USB, so I won't ask that question. But what additionally would help you move in that direction so that we could become more efficient, get better visibility to our customers, maybe be more proactive with customer service, because we still wait for our customers to call us and tell us our networks are broken. As an example, what could we do from a vendor community or OEM community to help you guys move forward?
So I would say that, if the device, and then the controller that both part is mature enough, we would like to go to there, as soon as possible, right? And so initially, our approach is, so it's a new device, a small new device we want to try out. So we want to learn that, because the operation team still, there's a new stuff. We want to, learn the road, right? So basically to kind of road. So once that's completed, probably, my opinion is that we need to go there, as fast as, economically, feasible, right? So, but then there's some problem there, because so if the uptake is too slow, then the vendor side, they don't invest enough funds into it now. They made the USB the process. The maturity of that ecosystem is lower, right? So I guess there's enough funding, enough funding being spent on making that the entire device, agent and the controller mature, of course. Yeah. So I think AT&T is trying to do that, right? So we are trying to push. So AT&T coming from the another proprietary stuff, we want to made that into TR 181. So and then also on the peripheral side, we have active participation in that. So we want that. I know our features, our new proprietary style being pushed into the standard as fast as possible, and also to make that if the software is mature enough, we want to go there. Yeah, that's what
So I'd appreciate responses from the other, but I wanted to just ask Chen real quick and the group. Today we have this ACS that's out there that's got this CWMP connector on it. One of my thoughts before was, well, maybe we allow our CPE to run CWMP and run USP. Or maybe, but that provides more overhead on the CPE, right? Maybe the other way to look at this is, why don't we put a USP connector on the ACS? So that, you can just replace the connector on your CPE and that remote management system that's out there doesn't have to change. You can start then building on that new functionality. But again, just thinking out loud. Chen, thank you very much.
So definitely our new CPs are double stack. Okay, it's GR69 or CWMP and USP. And then there is question, okay, which one you use for which functionality. So this is just a no-brainer. So the real question for me, so we already agreed that it will be kind of progressive, okay, no big bang or whatever. So the big question regarding the industry is how many new use cases we can have that justify using USP, using new backends, etc. But this is feasible. Okay, you can justify something new because you bring some new value, etc. That makes sense. Nobody is able today to prove that we need to replace ACS tomorrow because it will be a new value. No, for the functions it provides, there is no value. The value is in new stuff. So double stack, this is the answer from my perspective, and then we are independent from whatever the pace with which we will move forward.
I think I would also add for the new devices, I don't see a big challenge. Yes, we can get better. I think there are some items Marcel talked about, software module management, that are still a bit more on the experimental side. But in general, I think for our new devices, we feel comfortable that we can make it without tremendously over-investing in it. So I think here the best thing we can do is continue with this open source initiatives, make it more visible, put it into the standard platforms as a default agent as well, adjust the comfort factors, basically. The legacy is, I think, really the big concern, where sometimes data models are not matching, the SDK update, as mentioned, is required. And here, I think, I don't know if there's a way to do something like USP Lite and say we focus on a couple of use cases that require less resources or have an easier data model adoption. But I think that's where we would like to look for a bit more active contribution and ideas also from the vendor community. Because at the moment, as mentioned, we handpick some devices and say we will want to have everything on there, because for the new devices, we have everything. Maybe that's the wrong way to go, but I think that's a collaboration we should start now.
Yeah.
How can the OEM support us as provider bringing in USP? I think the answer is simple. Just integrate it. Yeah, integrate USB, and that would be the most beneficial thing. So we need numbers, we need to scale, and the argument is for the standard that you can reach the scale once more and more people, more and more companies are using it. Then you reach a synergy of the standard. Yeah.
So make sure RDK and Purple have it integrated in, so that you can touch it and use it when you need to. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Actually, with Purple, it's even better because there is no option with Purple not to have USP because USP is the backbone of the internal architecture of the Purple software.
And the certification for that matter.
Exactly. So you can not use it. I mean, the USP as a remote management protocol, but you will use it anyway as internal protocol. So you will have it in any case, and then optionally you can have CWMP or not, but USP it's granted.
I also wanted to add, you basically only pay for what you're actually using, right? So if you have a USP stack and you simply don't use it, then it's basically, it doesn't cost a lot of resources to just have it on. And on the other hand, there are also some use cases that are currently being done using, tier 69, which are simply so much more efficient with USP that you actually might even benefit from, just outsourcing those use cases that are doing the heavy lifting, like, data acquisition, byte data acquisition every couple of minutes. Something like that is really heavy if you're doing that in tier 69, which is why, people are only doing it like every half an hour or so, because they need so much infrastructure for that. But if they can use USP, that's actually going to be much more efficient for everyone, including, the device itself. So I think there's also a strong case for, moving to the new standard. So you can basically do the things for which we are currently using heavy workarounds that are somewhat expensive for everyone into a more appropriate protocol and even, save some resources.
Thanks, Daniel. That's actually a great segue into another question I have. But
Maybe
go ahead.
Quickly, I don't want to undermine anything what you said because I 100% agree. But I think
violently.
The challenge I think we see here for new devices, absolutely. For legacy, I think again, if a device has been designed with a different data model in mind, with different internal structures, let's say on a high level, it feels more complicated to move. And if we can break this vicious circle and someone says, oh, actually, it's super easy. I just rewrite my data model. Happy. If not, let's take it into account for everything we are doing from now on, at least. Yeah?
Stop using tier 98. It has been deprecated for 10 years now.
Oh, we're going to obsolete it soon. I just have to type some things and then it'll be done. So actually, that's great because that's the perfect segue to my next question. Fragmentation around the data model. Let's talk about it. When is it absolutely necessary? How can we reduce it? Right. One of the things that Matthew put in his presentation yesterday that we always want to hit home is to, from the broadband forum perspective, always come to us sooner rather than later, because by the time if we can work in parallel trying to get that standardized even while you're using it as a vendor extension, that's totally fine. But how can we in the future reduce that fragmentation, get it so that the data model is more standardized, especially when there's a lot of around Wi-Fi proprietary solutions, and metrics that only some people use because they're the ones that makes their stuff work. But
that's an excellent question, because this fragmentation is also one of the reasons why this migration, whatever the way you define it, is so hard, okay? Because it's not only the standard stuff, but there is a lot of special stuff that we were the only ones to have this brilliant idea and to introduce, etc. So there's a lot of this stuff, and it works, okay? And it works. So nobody wants to touch it for sure. So there, if you look why it happened, okay, why it was fragmented is because we had the control of our own software, okay? So we were able to do that, and to do that quite fast, okay? So this is what we were doing. And then the problem was that once we did it, it worked. That was no reason, to make any additional effort, especially if this standardization effort would mean to change what already works. So that was a big problem. And if you look at the way Purple works, one of the reasons why we have Purple is to address this problem. Because if you look at the way we work at the Purple Foundation, so we try to grab all new use cases, okay, and to modelize them as soon as possible.
David's not in the room.
Talk with you guys, okay? Then
Was it-
implement it
Oh,
in
he
parallel.
just walked in.
Yeah, this is the guy that bears all this burden. So we implement the proposal why it's still discussed by the broadband forum.
Mhm, mhm.
So it's a vendor specific, that's true, but it's already implemented, and logically it's not that far from what at the end will be standardized by BBF. So there are some differences, of course. So once it's standardized, we have a second run to adapt it, okay? So it guarantees us that we can have this new functionality very soon. You know, when the idea appears, we can have it implemented and standardized at the same time, and not something that, you know, as we did it in the past, that we were implementing and then it worked, so it worked.
Which is ironically your own vendor lock-in to yourself.
Exactly, exactly. This is why, you know, it's so important to work with the others, but to be agile, okay? And this collaboration between the Purple Foundation and BBF is so critical, because we need to find a way of moving forward without fragmenting. And it looks that we are, you know, there. Maybe there's still some improvement, but it's really a huge progress compared to what we had in the past. So that's really great.
Just quickly commenting on that vendor lock-in, I think we come from the opposite direction. We had not this control on software yet, but we were then locked in with very different detailed implementations from the different ODMs. And on the outside, that did not matter, because on the outside, every device was fulfilling our requirements. But it was implemented in 10 different variants, and we maybe made it worse with 10 different local requirements in every country that we were throwing on that. So now we are trying to escape this vendor lock-in, in our case with RDK, basically, and take more ownership of the software platform ourselves and move away from, on the outside, it looks like the same, but on the inside, it's built in different ways.
So regarding the data model, I think the Broadband Forum does a great job. And it's so you're continuously improving, but on the other hand side, there are vendor extensions, and every engineer likes to invent something by its own, right? And he doesn't want to wait for the standards. That's fine, I think. So we have also now ideas what we are going to integrate into for special use cases, right? And we will do, and cooperations with ABM colleagues over there, and we will make use of it. But this is not something to judge about. It's a good thing that we are that flexible to add our own ideas, to make use of them directly, and then step by step, they are all coming into the standard a bit later. It's fine. Yeah. So I think there's no. It's just such a useful tool, and also how you have prepared this in terms of how we can consume and the data model with all the tools and so on. So this is so useful so I like both. I like the standard, and I like also to vendor extensions.
Yeah. Can we make any of that easier, you think, on the tool side? To make it sort of more clear how to do that, because it's obviously yesterday morning we gave a ton of presentations on how to make that how to do it right.
Just one more point to the previous stuff, but I believe it's important, and it just appeared in my head. So an additional problem is about the life cycle at the CP side and the life cycle at the, let's say, ACS or controller side. This is a big headache also, how to synchronize all those things. So another question is, okay, I can, standardize the things at one side, but how about the other side? Okay, and it can be very painful, this ACS side in some cases. I can guarantee that. So we also need to have means, to temporarily make a kind of mappings, temporal mappings. So once again, this is something that's already in the design of Purple, but this is one of the key aspects, that the pace is not the same at both sides, and we must to have means that enable to move forward at different paces to avoid this fragmentation.
Yeah. Chen.
So I think when you ask the question, you expect, the answer is to do standardization, right?
Right.
Is that,
No, I know.
Yeah,
I guess, but I take Volker's point very seriously, though.
I
It's
know.
like,
I just
if we didn't want people to do it, we wouldn't have put it in there, right?
Yeah, and then that's the right answer, right? So, but then there are some vendors. I mean, so different, the vendors come together, and the standardization body, and then guess this is what I need, and the other say, oh, this is what I need. See if there are any common grounds, right? And put together a common set of, the data model or whatever, and then that's the best way to address the fragmentation, right?
That's definitely how the cellular data model is. That's basically what happened, right?
Yeah. So and I mentioned before earlier that you see AT&T, we are very active, try to come up with propose new additions to the data model and those kinds of, we want it to be resolved, quickly, so that they can be, the Purple platform can use those, and then we're gonna deploy. So.
Any audience questions before I keep going? Okay. The line of reasoning I was going down with all that is there a desire at all to eventually get away from the need to do all this integration work and go back to a day where things are just naturally interoperable and you can buy whatever controller and whatever whatever router you want and it all just works, and or is that something that's sort of like or is it the flip side where putting that work in is really just part of your process now because it is so beneficial?
I believe that there will be always some dose of integration because of the weight of legacy, and you will always have a kind of legacy at any given point in time. Okay, right. Even when you start with the brilliant idea that you are the alone in the world having, and you implement it, etc. Then 2 years later, everybody has it too, and now then it will become just a common stuff, etc. But you have your legacy stuff, okay, and so you need to deal with it one way or another. So the question is more about the way you implement those brilliant ideas, okay. And my point and all my experience is that you must have a very well defined ways of customizing your firmware, and not do it, as if you are alone in the world. Right. And I believe that, the big value of working with other operators is that you discover, first of all, that you are not the only one having this brilliant idea. And then basically we have the same ones. And then, so what is common and where we want to differentiate. And basically you define where this border is. And then you keep everything that is really customization beyond this border. And this border is absolutely key in order, to move forward. But you will always have this stuff, okay? There will be always something specific. That's what I believe, okay? If not, it means that we are not innovating anymore, because if you look at the innovation, this is not in the common part. Common part, so this is not an innovation. Right. But it must enable you to innovate, but innovation is only valid during some period of time, and then you need to do something about it.
Right.
Okay, I don't have much more to add to that. I agree. I think in that sense, this dream of 100% interoperability and everything magically works, we will never reach, because then we are in a deprecated standard soon. So I think it's really this innovation, and where ourselves, I think we need to get more disciplined as well, is feeding back. So once some of these items, maybe we even try in isolation for a certain amount of time. But if we see, yes, that's work, we believe there is a model behind, I think we need to more actively share it back and say it survived this initial test balloon phase. Okay, let's get it into the standard.
Yeah.
So I think we as operators, our job is to bring out the standard, to make it take off of USP, to add value to it, right? To make it applicable, to make it scalable and robust, right? And we also want some work to do. So if it's if this would be an easy task, right? Then everybody would do it. And I know it is like it is. You can't change it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and so we have a role in the game, right? And we are somehow profiting from each other and cooperating. And yeah.
Chen, did you have anything else you want to add? I just
Is that question about
about is there ever a desire to get to a point where you could buy any controller, buy any router, and it just works, and that level of versus versus the value of being involved in the integration process, right?
Well, so I think I generally value competition. So if there's enough competition in the marketplace, that will drive down the cost.
Right.
Everything that generally is a good thing. But then there is also the issue of, I mean, if you try to buy something, just plug in, who do you call for support? You don't want to call the random people for support, right? So
right.
There's still some important thing about relationship. Develop the trust relationship with different partners.
Mm-hmm.
Just there's a two side of it. Yeah, I would just say, I mean, it depends how involved, right? So
right.
Yeah.
One final question. Other than things having to do with network management themselves, what value-added service do you think is the first one that you guys would consider? It doesn't have to be one. It could be a couple.
It depends how you define those things. From the Purple perspective, any value-added service is based on some data models. Okay, there's no other way around. So everything we put in the application layer is basically USP based. Then today we are more talking about solutions running in the containers in the CPE, but the way it's designed, it's irrelevant where it runs. Okay, so depending on different deployment strategies, it can run in the CPU or not, in the cloud or another device or whatever. So that's the vision. So today, if we look what are those value-added services based on top of it, basically I would say they are in a huge majority things that have been existing for already a few years, because that was the needs the industry identified, and we are just making them more portable and more independent from the lower layers, and that's fine. But personally, I believe that there will be new use cases once the industry, in a broad sense, will learn that now it's possible to develop on top of the operating system, and not to have this pain of going to each operator, each OEM, and to negotiate to work something specific, etc. Because basically this business model defined in this way is not scalable for those guys. Okay? Mm-hmm. So we need to educate the industry that those things are changing, and now they can bring innovation that will be scalable for them. So that's what I strongly believe. I know a few good ideas, but I'm under NDA, so we'll not discover them, but this is how those things will move forward. Okay.
I think that's important, really, where you draw the line as well between what is a service and what is part of what we're doing today in a different way. So if we look at some use cases we do today already, like big data, like enabling an app controller, I think that's not really the new value-added service. It's just a more efficient way for what we're doing anyway. Then I think we have two different views. We have our own value-added services that can be using containers to offer security products we saw this morning, Wi-Fi optimization, other things. So items where we believe this is a value-added service we can give to customers. But it can also be, and that might be even more powerful long-term, as you mentioned, the platform play to say anything that today requires a cheap extra plastic box with a Raspberry Pi in your home to do God knows what, energy management, for instance. Why do you need to invest in this extra plastic box if we have a software platform? Yeah, and that will require collaboration. It will not work if it's just on a Vodafone router, or maybe a bit, but then there's Deutsche Telekom customers and they still need to buy the plastic box. So I think that's the long-term part that's really powerful.
Right. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I think USB is just an enabler. It's a technology, and you're asking for the added value. So there's a value for us as service provider, for our operations. For so currently we use data, for customer care reasons, operations. Future use cases, I imagine, also very much in the area of real-time interactions. I can imagine quite a lot of services which require real-time information from the CPE, or creating new customer touch points, something like this app controller thing, which is so powerful. So these are really big points for me.
Chen, last word.
So I think there's, the immediate thing in the future, right? So, from the operation point of view, I think the immediate value added for us is, help us identify, what's the potential problem in our customers' network. Because we have another, customer calling. Most of the customer call is related to maybe trace back to Wi-Fi issue. And now they have so many different Wi-Fi devices. It's not our network's problem. Network pretty stable, but if they got a Wi-Fi connection, then they calling, right? So if there is ways they, tell us basically, this is, what's the potential problem? What's the solution? Yeah, that'd be a good start, right? And then long term, now, if we have the proper platform enabled, we don't know what that entails, right? Could tons of possibilities.
Yeah. We've seen a lot of them sort of just come out of the woodwork, things you wouldn't expect. They'd be like, oh, I had this idea for an app. We're like, oh, okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you guys so much. I always find these ridiculously valuable. So I hope everybody did. A round of applause for all of our panelists here.